Welcome back to the Getting a Grip podcast. Today we are talking all things feet. Yeah, bit gross, but they are important considering we need them to actually be able to, move around. So we're talking about soreness, smelliness, and all things to do with feet. So Merlin's got a few little nuggets for us, and we're just going to sort of discuss important aspects of managing your feet and how to keep all that soreness and smelliness away.
Yeah, I really hate that you described it as nuggets. I don't know why. That's
from a nuggets.
I'm really off this now. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love chicken nuggets and nugs from Mackey's, but yeah, no, that's the only nuggets I want to think about. Don't put that in with the smelly feet.
Okay,
that's bad enough for me already. So anyway, anyhow. We'll get you started off. So we've got our usual question format, which would be quite nice to take us through. We're obviously going to talk a little bit about feet, obviously a little bit about the injuries that can happen with feet, but we sort of covered that recently with some of the, the key injuries and things that you can try and do to prevent them. Because one of the key things that happens in tennis is that you tend to have tendon-based problems. And we covered a lot of that with tennis elbow. So if any of you are interested in what you can do to prevent anything tendon related that you experience with tennis, the tennis elbow stuff and how you can prevent that and how you can help that heal and stuff like that applies to everything. It's not just to tennis elbow, considering even though tennis elbow is the most common in tennis. But what I wanted to do to start off with is ask you, Ben, what the most common foot and ankle injury is in tennis, and this has genuinely been done as like it's a validated number one, and it goes through a list of about 10 different things, all of which have long, complicated Latin names, which I've translated. But you have 4 options here, and I'm going to go with the first one is Achilles tendonitis. Second one is plantar fasciitis. There's not really a translation for that one because that's what the things are called. So if you know what they are, then that's good. Good start. The third option is stress fracture, and the fourth one is an ankle sprain. But what do you think is the most common foot/ankle injury in tennis?
I'm torn. Well, I'm kind of torn. Excuse the pun.
Very nice.
Torn.
This is the content our viewers want. That's what we're listening for.
I don't even try at this point. Sometimes it just happens.
Just slips out, eh?
Yeah. Between the ankle sprain and what was the first option?
Achilles tendonitis.
No. Although plantar fasciitis potentially. Although I kind of associate that more with like just long distance running in general. Like I know you are covering a lot of distance when you play, but it's kind of like not all in a straight line as well. So I don't know. I'm going to go with the ankle sprain, but that's because I did that recently. So it's fresh in my mind, sadly.
Well, unfortunately, you need to get a grip because the most common foot and ankle injury in tennis is Achilles tendonitis. How could you not get that? I sort of introduced it as tendon issues are the main thing in tennis.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Interestingly, Achilles tendonitis is one of the main issues. So thankfully, the most common injury is not Achilles tearing, because that's really bad and requires quite a lengthy bit of time out. But Achilles tendonitis happens quite frequently, and there are loads of reasons why it happens. But yeah, that is the most common. And actually, going down the list, these are the top 4. So plantar fasciitis is the second most common. This is something that runners normally get. You're correct. But anything you do that uses your feet sort of abnormally, like lots of stop-start movement, it can often cause that sort of strain because the plantar is that basically the bit of your foot underneath between the heel and the front of your foot, and when that gets strained, for example, there's loads of reasons it can happen, like bones, spurs, and all of that sort of stuff, but it causes quite a lot of issues, and some people do find it quite hard to move with that. And then it does go to 3, just stress fracture, and 4 is an ankle sprain. So obviously an ankle sprain, you would think that's the most common because loads of people get that all the time. But more often than not, when people have ankle problems, it's more serious than they think it is, which is why it always lasts longer than they expect it to. Oh, it'll be over in a couple of days. And then someone's like, oh, a few months later, yeah, it still feels a bit funny when I walk on it. It's just like, well, you probably did some damage. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm surprised. I don't know. I'm kind of surprised the stress fracture one is as high as that. I mean, I know it's repetitive over a period of time, but I don't know. I think I'm just thinking from like my own perspective of injuries that I've had, because I haven't had like Achilles tendonitis. I occasionally have had like soreness in my foot, so maybe a little bit of plantar fasciitis, but generally like I've like done minor sprains to my ankle quite a lot, and had like one bad one recently, so that's why it was like fresh in my mind. But that's interesting. Have you had Achilles tendonitis before?
I have, I definitely have had it before. And I will go through some of the preventative things you can do later. But my immediate reaction was, oh, it's fine, I can keep playing. I just need to put ankle support on, which isn't necessarily the answer. It doesn't not help, but it doesn't help. So, there's lots of things. And the only thing you can really do for that sort of thing is probably to rest it. There's loads of other things you can do, such as we covered in the tennis elbow episode, ways to ameliorate all that inflammation that you get in that area. But it's the same sort of thing. It's an area that's under a lot of stress, and you've got to really look after your Achilles, because that tendon is so crucial to just standing. Being able to be up is so important. So it's definitely something you want to look after, considering it's the most common injury that you get in tennis as well, which in the foot and ankle region. Only in the foot and ankle region. It's not the most common injury, of course. That's tennis elbow. But like I say, it's quite bad. It's quite bad. I think a lot of the time it comes down to some basic things that a lot of people don't do. And we're going to sort of move on to that with question number 2. So as a coach, and this is a little subjective, so I'm asking you this question because you're going to know the answer, but maybe our listeners might not. So hopefully you get this right. If you don't, you need to give money back to a lot of people. But as a coach, which element of footwork do you find people struggle with the most? And this could be across any level of player. Is it big steps, small steps, jump smashes, Gael Monfils, or is it the split step?
They struggle with all of them, I'll tell you. Well, wait.
Do you want the answers again?
Why have you put in the jump smash in there?
Would you want the answers again?
No one does that.
Gael Monfils does that.
Yeah, but okay, Gael Monfils does that.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Exactly.
Well, surely it's that then. I mean, they struggle with little steps as well.
I'll give you the options again. Is it big steps, small steps, jump smashes, or split steps? Ben, what do people struggle with as a coach, as a professional coach? What do they struggle with?
They struggle with the split step, Merlin.
Correct. Well done. Oh, he's got 1 out of 2.
But not because it's a difficult thing to do, as in like a difficult footwork pattern to do. It's more a case of remembering to actually do it before each shot, because the other footwork patterns are obviously more difficult to do, like objectively. But people can remember to do those things, but remembering to do the split step each time is harder.
Quite right. And a lot of people find they get sore feet when they start doing split steps, quite a lot in the early days if they're not used to playing tennis. And that often is, as you said earlier, is you start to get a little bit of a sprain, and then that starts to happen in the middle of your foot at the bottom, and it normally does lead to something like plantar fasciitis. Now, that's not something that doesn't go away. A lot of people, if you're starting out tennis, you're playing once or twice a week, you're having that rest period, it won't develop into that. Never will. You'll just have a sore foot for an hour or so after tennis, and then it goes away quite nicely because you're using really, really small muscles, right? Really small muscles quite vigorously. However, a lot of foot and ankle issues often happen because people don't do the split step. Now, this isn't something that a study has shown, because I don't think a study's ever tried to show it. But it is something that, as a coach, I definitely see. People who have incorrect footwork, for example, are more likely to do themselves a bit of harm. So if you're standing very upright, the way you're going to move, and if your feet are very narrow, the way you're going to move is you're more likely to slip over, especially if that court's a little bit wet, or if someone hasn't, or if a clay court isn't wet enough, for example, and it starts to clump a little bit, dries out. There's all sorts of reasons. But for me, being able to move properly is the best thing you can do to start off with.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually, because if your stance is narrower, you're more likely to get your foot caught under yourself as well, right? Obviously, you're less stable automatically because, if you're stood upright straight, if I try and push you over, it's going to be pretty easy. Whereas if you're stood with a slightly wider stance and you're a little bit lower, if I try and push you over, it's going to be a little bit harder, simple as that, really. And you want that stable base to push off from, because also it's going to help you get to the shots quicker as well. So it will reduce injury risk and also literally help you get to more balls. So, and many other things. So it's a win-win, really. And a lot stop being lazy.
Yeah, quite right. Yeah, stop being lazy. Thank you. We say, as coaches, we say this for a reason, right? We're not just trying to steal your money by teaching you something useless. It's actually very useful. I'm not frustrated at all about that. What I will also say is a lot of people are often reluctant to it because a lot of people aren't taught it in the early days properly. So, when you look at tennis players on TV, you take it for granted, because when you watch Federer, it just looks like he's sort of gliding around the court, or when you watched Federer, he seems to glide around the court. So I've got to talk about it in past tense now. I'm still not used to that. So that doesn't always translate to, it looks like he's doing something. You just think, that's how he moves. Or you think, when I go on and play tennis, I'm not going to move like him. But you can move like him if you start to do these split steps and you start to be able to basically control your movement in a way more fluid fashion, which is very, very important. And as we say, it does reduce the risk of any injuries. And it also makes you a better tennis player. Who doesn't want that?
Yeah, I think it also comes into that mindset of being proactive, right, on the court. So you're looking to try and see that ball as early as you can. You're looking to see where it's going, trying to read what the opponent's doing rather than just like standing there and just waiting for the ball, which I see quite a lot. So I think it just plays into that, because I notice if I engage my legs and the split step early, and I do that at the start of my session, and then it bleeds through to the whole session, I'm just naturally more switched on. Like it almost transfers to your mindset as well. So I think that's another reason why it's important.
Oh yeah, for sure. We could do whole episodes all on just the split step. We could do one on the split, one on the step. It's such an important thing that not enough detail can be used to cover it. So what we'll do is we'll move on to a little bit more of some of the issues that happen with our feet. So we've covered something that's really crucial, really important. The idea of the split step, or some people call it the ready position. But the split step it's more of a movement. The ready position is sort of what you do before it. Some people get confused there too. But something that's really important about our feet is also looking after how they are as a result of playing tennis. So it's not always about how well you can use them, and it's not always about preventing an injury. Sometimes it's something as simple as, why do my feet smell so bad after I play tennis? Seriously, Ben, why? Why do they smell so bad after I play tennis?
I mean, I asked myself that same question. I think I can kind of smell them from here, which is kind of scary. But
I thought you'd just woken up. Wow,
your feet, mate.
Ben doesn't shower after he plays tennis. Oh, you can smell my feet.
I can smell your feet from across the other side of the world. Yeah,
right. Well, yeah. Yeah,
but my feet do smell bad actually after I've played. Yeah.
Little fun anecdote for you. After I ever play tennis, we have, obviously the wash bag at home. The wash bag is in the room, obviously, where we sleep. My girlfriend won't allow the bag to be in the room after I've played tennis because the socks still smell. So yeah, there you go. Insight into my life. Anyway, so the first question on this aspect, the third question of today, what causes our feet to smell so bad following tennis, and I guarantee this is something that pretty much all tennis players, men and women, doesn't matter who you are, face. Got 4 options. Is it sweat? Is it bacteria? Is it fungus? Or is it underlying health conditions? What do you reckon?
Ooh.
Which of those?
Well, I hope it's not the last one because I'm in trouble.
It could be more than one. I will give you the benefit here. It could be more than one.
I'm naturally inclined to say fungus or bacteria, even. Fungus.
You gotta give me an answer, mate.
Yeah, that is my answer.
All right, fungus.
You're a fun guy.
You said it with a question. I was just like, no, I'm asking the questions. I am the captain now. Well, you're not wrong, but I would say it's not the right answer. So, yes, fungal infections are one of the things that can obviously cause problems in your feet, but that they more happen as a problem because of not looking after and washing your feet. So fungus is not really the correct answer here. The reason they smell is a combination of sweat and bacteria. So got to think of it like this. Unfortunately, when you're playing tennis, obviously you've got socks in shoes, sweating quite a lot. That sweat is marinating around inside your tennis shoes. And this is why your shoes smell bad afterwards as well.
What a word.
Because that sweat then becomes food for bacteria that either live in the shoes, the socks, or on your feet. And a lot of people don't like to think about this. I know, tiny little microbes that sort of live on your body that, not okay. Brooklyn Nine-Nine, we've heard.
They're everywhere, so the good and bad bacteria.
Quite right.
We don't want to think about it.
But no, you don't. Otherwise, you end up like Terry from Brooklyn Nine-Nine, where he like shaves all the hair off of his body because he just can't handle the idea of it.
We're just in the shower for like hours. Get it off me.
Start to shave the eyebrows as well. So no, that's the key reason. And as bacteria like that break down as they die, that's when they let off that horrible smell. So that's basically the reason they smell so bad. There are a lot of things you can do about them. We're going to move on to that shortly. But unfortunately, they're all just smelly people.
That's my feet definitely sweat. Like I'm a kind of sweatier person, so like my feet are like the first things that normally like start sweating when they're inside socks. They just don't like it. and then the shoes start smelling and you're just like, oh god, here we go again.
I tell you what, if anyone thought that we were anyone that listens to us is like, oh, I like the sound of their voices, I bet they're nice looking blokes, or I like these guys, they seem quite nice, this is clean presentation. It's just like everyone's put off now. This is the episode that finishes us. People thinking about our sweaty feet and it's done. It's quite bad, and it is something that we need to deal with. And unfortunately, there's not really a way you can stop it, but there is a way you can deal with it and prevent it and make it slightly better, especially for all of the people around us, such as the people we live with. So that leads us on to question 4: is how can we eliminate our foot odor? And you've got 4 options here: shoe deodorizer, alternate your shoes, change your socks regularly, or don't wear shoes.
Barefoot tennis, or just tennis and socks. That would be interesting.
No, human foot tennis.
For God's sake.
Sorry,
terrible. Wait, sorry, what was the actual question? It was how do we
eliminate foot odor? Is it shoe deodorizer, alternating your shoes, changing your socks regularly, or don't wear shoes? And multiple could be correct here.
Well, eliminating is, well, if you're going to use another pair of shoes, you're not going to eliminate it, I feel like. Deodorizer? something I should probably use, actually.
Final answer?
Yeah.
You're correct. That is one of the options, but so is alternating your shoes and changing your socks regularly. So you remember when I spoke about the bacteria that causes that smell? Because your sweat normally does not smell. Normally it's bacteria associated with your sweat that causes smells to happen in your body, for example, because sweat normally is just saline, salty fluid, effectively. The important thing here is shoe deodorizer is great because that will help eliminate the bacteria in your shoes and bring that smell out of your shoes. But that's just your shoes. That bacteria is also living in your socks, and that bacteria is also living on your feet. So if you alternate your shoes as well, what you'll also do is allow... so for example, if you buy a pair of tennis shoes, and provided you have the ability to do this, not everyone is financially plush enough to be able to use this particular option. That doesn't limit you. This is just one option that you can use. If you have two pairs of the exact same shoes and you use one for, I don't know, one day and one for the next day, if you're playing 2 days in a row, that will help eliminate that smell as well, because you'll let those shoes air out. They won't stay as, well, marinating in the sweat and bacteria that's in them. And changing your socks regularly is the same thing. That basically, the longer you wear a pair of socks, the more bacteria can multiply. And bear in mind that, anyone who did biology at school, you might remember that some bacteria are able to multiply within 20 minutes. So say you're wearing that pair of socks for 2 to 3 hours. How many 20 minutes is that? Well, every time they multiply, they double. So 2 times 2 is 4, and then 2 times 4 is 8, and then 2 times 8 is 16, and then you can see where this goes. So, of course, these sorts of things are very, very important in sort of limiting it. They might not get rid of it, but they will limit it quite a lot. They're not all accessible, but again, helpful.
I do alternate my shoes, but probably not as frequently as I should. I also stick them out in the sun as well, like in the hot sun.
That can help, yeah.
Yeah. But I
Ryan?
Can't really do that in the UK that much. Sorry, guys.
No, and that's a good point. That is a good point. But what you can do, for example, when you finish playing tennis, do you carry on wearing those shoes on your way home? No, quite right. Now, I always change my shoes because I actually don't like tennis shoes. Tennis shoes are great for tennis, but walking around, they're really heavy shoes.
Like clown shoes.
And for good reason. Yeah, for good reason as well. And we'll come on to that in a second. But they're a very specific type of shoe. I always change my shoes to a lighter trainer, much more breathable as well. So that helps. Because that will also take away the possibility of the smell from necessarily wearing the same shoes for a longer period of time. But also, if you're changing your shoes into something lighter, you can also wear like sandals or something like that. Most tennis players, when you see them come off the court, even Rafa Nadal, he always loosened the laces of his shoes, open them up. Even that helps, because you don't need them tied tight to your foot for risk of injury when you're just sort of walking around. So, there's lots of little things. If you don't want to change shoes, loosen them at least. Make it more breathable. All of these things can help.
All right. Is that all the questions?
No, it's not. It comes on to the last question. And I said we'd come on to this. How can you protect your feet and ankles? And this is another preventative method, and we've got 4 answers here for you. Remember, we talked about common ankle issues, common foot issues, and ways that we can mitigate that, which also ties into mitigating any of the smelly feet aspects as well. 4 options. How can you protect your feet and ankles? Can you wear the correct shoes? Can you wear soft, squishy socks? Can you moisturize your feet? Or change your socks regularly? What do you reckon?
So what the main aim of this is for the smelliness and the injury risk, or just the smelliness?
So you can look at this as a holistic thing for both protecting your feet and your ankles and reducing the smell. But you can also look at this just from the preventing injury aspect.
Can I have the options again?
Correct shoes, soft, squishy socks, or reinforced socks, I can also say, moisturizing your feet, or changing your socks regularly.
Well, it's most of them, isn't it? Well, the correct shoes helps.
Well, in which case, I'm going to give you the point because you're quite right. It is all of them. They are all the correct answer. And carry on. You were saying about the correct shoes?
Oh, well, yeah, that makes a big difference for your ankle and foot stability. Like, tennis shoes isn't just like a con to be like, oh, you play tennis, so now you must have tennis shoes. Like, if you get the actual decent tennis shoes, makes a huge difference. Trust me, like playing in normal trainers versus playing in tennis shoes, you feel so like unstable. If you get the chance to compare the two, it's like horrible. I would like now just never play tennis without having the proper shoes. If I'm coaching, I can play with trainers, but that's because I'm not actually like running around and hitting so much. But if I'm playing any kind of rallying, I'm like, I can't not have those shoes.
And I think people need to think of it like, how when you drive, people tell you, oh, don't wear flip-flops because you could die. It's the same with tennis and tennis shoes. Don't wear anything but tennis shoes because you could die or your feet could die.
That's one way of looking at it, I suppose.
Yes.
But yeah, they are super important. So yeah, if you're going to, like the investments with tennis, obviously a racket is another investment, but shoes is probably one of the other most important investments that you can make. And normally they will last like a good few months. I mean, if you're not playing that regularly, they'll last, I don't know, they could probably last a year, to be honest. Just depends really, but it's definitely worth it because, I mean, what's it like, I don't know, £100 versus getting your ankle injured and then can't walk around properly, or pros.
You can get good tennis shoes for less than that. If you look for the deals, like Pro Direct Tennis, for example, you can get a good pair of tennis shoes, 40-50 quid. Pounds, that is.
There you go. Merlin's got you covered.
You can work out. Yeah. You can get a decent pair of shoes for less. Unfortunately, if you play a lot of tennis, if you're like me, you probably go through a pair of shoes in about 2 or 3 months because you've worn through the soles that quickly. And that's just because of the way you move in tennis. A lot of sliding, there's a lot of friction. So you do completely destroy pairs of shoes. And you think, oh, they're thick shoes, heavy shoes. But no, they wear down. Obviously shoes are important. The socks, reinforced socks, that helps because if you feel like you're getting strain in one part of your foot compared to the other, reinforcing it, giving yourself that extra barrier and softness also helps protect your feet, especially from things like rubbing and chafing and stuff like that. Changing your socks regularly also helps because if you keep your feet sweaty, then you will find it harder to move because you'll find it harder to keep the shoe in comfortably, basically. So your feet will start to move around in the shoe as well, which can lead to some instability. And then obviously moisturising your feet. That's not something I do, but I know I should.
I do sometimes. But
do you?
In a way, but it can also make your feet a little bit more slippery, I suppose, which is not necessarily a good thing. Well, moisturising, it just makes it greasy, right?
I'm not saying moisturise before you play tennis.
No,
like an aftercare thing, It's not like moisturise your feet, then put your shoes on, and
just cover them like Vaseline.
Slide.
That'd be quite amusing to watch, actually. Anyway, let us know what kind of strategies you use, if there's anything we've missed here. Obviously, like that thing that I said about, leaving your shoes out in the sun, like little tips like that. There's always things that people work out that work for them. And if you've enjoyed it, give us a follow on the different podcast platforms, and then on YouTube, like it, share it, and subscribe. And we will see you in the next one.